On the Eastern Front, World War II wasn't decided just by men. It was decided by steel monsters. It was the largest clash of armor in the history of humanity, a grinding war of attrition fought across endless fields, frozen forests, and burning cities. On one side, the German Wehrmacht, a force obsessed with precision engineering, advanced optics, and technical quality. On the other, the Soviet Union, masters of mass production, brute force, and gigantic calibers. Today we're going to analyze, vehicle by vehicle, who really had the mechanical advantage in this duel of titans. From the small tankettes that started the conflict to the 70-ton beasts that tried to end it. We will look at armor, firepower, mobility, and battlefield roles to understand how each machine really performed under fire. Welcome to the definitive battle, German steel versus Soviet steel. At the beginning of the war, the German reality was far from their propaganda of invincibility. The Wehrmacht entered combat with the Panzer I. Originally, this vehicle was designed only for training. It had paper-thin armor and was armed only with 2 machine guns, but necessity forced it into combat service during the initial invasions. Against poorly equipped opponents, it worked. Against real anti-tank guns, it was a death trap. Its immediate successor, the Panzer II, was a stopgap measure. Although it became the backbone of the early blitzkrieg, its 20mm auto cannon was only effective against light vehicles and infantry, quickly becoming obsolete as enemy armor improved. The Soviets, however, had a different and chaotic approach. Before their legendary tanks, they built everything. They had the T-27, a tiny tankette based on a British design that was soon considered useless for real combat. It was more a mobile machine gun nest than a real tank. But they innovated with amphibious tanks like the T-37A and T-40. These vehicles could swim, being useful for reconnaissance and river crossings, something the Germans didn't have in mass. On paper they looked impressive, but in real frontline conditions they were vulnerable, lightly armored, and often sacrificed once the enemy concentrated fire. Where Germany regained the technical advantage was on wheels. While the Soviets used light armored cars like the BAA-64, a cheap and maneuverable 4x4 vehicle, the Germans deployed the Puma. Possibly the best armored car of the war, the Puma combined high speed with a powerful 50mm cannon, capable of destroying most Allied scouts with ease. German optics and radios also gave their crews a major edge in spotting first and shooting first. In the reconnaissance game, seeing your enemy before he sees you often meant surviving the encounter. But wars are won with medium tanks. Germany relied on the Panzer IV. This was the true workhorse of the Wehrmacht. It was the only German tank that remained in production throughout the entire war, being repeatedly upgraded and up-armored to serve on all fronts, from Africa to Russia. Early models were intended mainly to support infantry with a short gun, but later versions received long, high-velocity cannons that turned them into serious tank killers. Alongside it was the Panzer III, which set the modern standard with a 3-man turret to maximize tactical efficiency. The commander could focus on battlefield awareness while the gunner aimed and the loader worked the ammunition. This crew layout is one of the reasons German tanks were so tactically effective in the early years. However, in 1941, the Red Army presented a machine that changed everything, the T-34-76. This tank revolutionized warfare. With its magnificent sloped armor and wide tracks, it defined the Soviet tank fleet and rendered German guns of the time obsolete. The sloped armor meant that shells often bounced instead of penetrating, and the wide tracks allowed it to move across mud and snow where many German vehicles bogged down. Its diesel engine also reduced fire risk compared to gasoline engines. For many German crews, the first encounter with a T-34 felt like facing something from the future. Germany's response was to create the Panther. Built specifically to counter the T-34, the Panther combined sloped armor, mobility, and a high-velocity 75mm gun. On paper, it was a nearly perfect balance of firepower and protection. Despite its initial mechanical problems and reliability issues, it's widely considered one of the best medium tanks of World War II. Its gun could destroy most Allied tanks at long range, and its frontal armor was extremely difficult to penetrate. The price, however, was complexity. It was harder to build, harder to maintain, and very demanding on German logistics. Not to be left behind in this arms race, the Soviets launched the T-34-85. This was the definitive combat machine of its series. Its new three-man turret and powerful 85mm gun restored its supremacy against late-war German tanks. The improved turret solved one of the original T-34's biggest problems, an overworked commander who also had to aim and fire the gun. With a proper three-man turret, Soviet crews could finally match German tactical efficiency while still enjoying the advantages of simplicity and mass production. Thousands of these tanks rolled off the assembly lines, overwhelming the battlefield with sheer numbers. This is where pure fear enters. We're talking about the heavyweights. In the German corner, the legendary Tiger I. With its thick square protection and lethal 88mm gun, the Tiger spread panic among Allied crews, dominating the battlefield from long range. Stories of a single Tiger halting entire units helped build its terrifying reputation. If that wasn't enough, then came the King Tiger, a massive 70-ton beast. It was almost impervious to enemy fire frontally, but its excessive weight destroyed bridges and pushed its own engine to the limit. Many King Tigers were lost not to enemy fire, but to breakdowns, lack of fuel, or being abandoned by their own crews. The Soviets had their own titans. At the start of the invasion, the KV-1 was virtually impervious to most German guns, causing panic among the invading forces. German anti-tank crews watched their shells bounce off its armor, sometimes forcing desperate attacks at point-blank range or from behind. And let's not forget the KV-2, the ultimate bunker destroyer, which mounted a massive 152mm howitzer in an enormous turret. It was slow, clumsy, and mechanically unreliable, but when that giant shell hit, it could erase fortifications and light vehicles in a single blast. But the final Soviet evolution was the IS-2, one of the most powerful tanks of the war. Its 122mm gun could defeat almost any German vehicle or fortification that crossed its path. It was designed with assaulting heavily defended positions in mind, smashing bunkers, buildings, and tanks alike. While the Tiger sought precision at distance, the IS-2 sought total destruction through brute force. Its shells were slower to load, and its rate of fire was lower, but each hit could be devastating, both physically and psychologically. Sometimes the best way to destroy a tank is by removing the turret to hide better. The Germans created the StuG III. By eliminating the turret from the Panzer III chassis, they created a low-profile assault gun, perfect for ambushes. Hidden in forests, behind hedgerows, or in urban ruins, StuGs could wait motionless and strike when enemy tanks exposed their sides. It became Germany's most produced armoured vehicle, cheaper and quicker to build than full-turreted tanks. They also had the Nashorn, or rhinoceros. This vehicle had almost no armour, but mounted a long 88mm gun capable of sniping enemy tanks from extreme distances. It relied entirely on distance and concealment for survival. And of course, the Jagdpanther, which combined the excellent Panther chassis with the lethal 88 gun, offering a perfect balance of speed, protection, and firepower. Many tank crews considered it one of the finest tank destroyers ever built. The Soviet Union responded with the Su-85, their first dedicated tank destroyer, and later with the formidable Su-100. Its powerful 100mm gun could face any German tank at normal combat range. These vehicles followed the same philosophy: no turret, thicker frontal armor, and a strong gun pointed forward. Used correctly, from prepared positions and in cooperation with infantry, they could blunt German armored counterattacks and protect Soviet breakthroughs. Urban warfare brought strange monsters. Germany built the Sturmtiger on a Tiger I chassis. It fired a 380mm rocket-propelled depth charge designed to demolish entire city blocks with a single shot. It was less a tank and more a mobile siege weapon intended to crush pockets of resistance hiding in concrete and brick. Watching one of these projectiles hit must have felt like seeing the end of the world on a single street. The Soviets had the Su-152, known as the Beast Killer. This self-propelled gun mounted a massive 152mm howitzer, devastating against both heavy tanks and fortifications. Even when its shells did not fully penetrate thick armor, the sheer explosive force could crack welds, jam turrets, or simply rip off external equipment. For crews inside German heavy tanks, being hit by one of these guns was terrifying, even if the armor technically held. No, in the end, who won the armor war? Germany bet on technical complexity with vehicles like the Jagdtiger, the heaviest combat vehicle to see service, with a 128mm gun capable of destroying anything it could hit. On a shooting range, it was unmatched, but on real battlefields, it was a logistical nightmare, heavy, slow, thirsty for fuel, and difficult to repair. The Soviets bet on reliability and numbers. The T-34 won the production war, flooding the front with thousands of good enough tanks supported by simple maintenance and fast replacement. The Tiger won the psychological legend, becoming a symbol of invincibility and fear, but legends alone cannot win a total war. So, looking at all these steel monsters, the question remains, which one would you choose to survive the Russian winter? German precision engineering with fewer but deadly machines, or Soviet brute force with rugged, simple tanks coming in wave after wave? Leave your choice in the comments and subscribe for more armored history.